is going on and why the Canadians are struggling short term, at least this season. We talked about like the psychology of it and it being uninspired, but I've noticed that we talk about Josh Anderson, Brendan Gallagher, as much as he's been a focal point of frustration, Christian Dvorak, the players who are kind of having like relative success right now, as much as I love seeing it for Brendan Gallagher and especially for Josh Anderson, who's had a tough couple of years here, these are the wrong guys that you want to be seeing succeed right now.
Yeah.
I wonder. I watched them play tonight against the Devils pretty closely, and I understand the Devils are a fast team and a very skilled team, but the frequency with which they're dumping the puck in and keeping the puck along the walls, I'm not seeing the team that looks for the best play, the patient team with the puck, even though they were bad under Martin St. Louis that I'm used to seeing, especially from the skill players. I'm seeing a lot of reaching instead of being in a position because you're skating to the right spot. And I'm seeing a lot of panic with the puck where they don't have confidence in the decisions that they're making. I'm wondering if we're at the same point with St. Louis right now where we were with Ducharme, where there's too many inputs going on, too many things being asked of players. We heard St. Louis talk for years about concepts over system, right? And how he wanted to slowly layer concepts in and let players adjust and then move forward and build on it. And I love that idea. It sounds amazing for building long term. But I wonder if they added too much this season and
Oh,
it's just for the skill players too confusing, and for the non-skill players because they're not asked to do as much, and not non-skill but like the more north-south players that grind it out, the forechecky kind of guys, those guys are, their jobs are relatively simple, they know what they're supposed to do, they're having success, but the other guys aren't. Like outside of Lane Hudson, I don't think a single skill player is having an all-around good season. I know Caulfield's scoring, but the underlying numbers are not kind either.
there's a lot to unpack here. So let's since we're talking about Saint Louis, let's stay on this for a second. You talked about if he added too much this season. Let me ask you a question. Is Martin Saint Louis as good a teacher as he is a communicator with the media? And here's why
Mm.
I'm asking this. The famous defensive system, zone coverage to meant to hybrid to I don't even know anymore, which he said recently with a bit of impatience, it's not complicated. Here's the thing. He's a freaking historically high IQ hockey player, a great hockey mind. He is a smart man. To him, it's not complicated. Might be more complicated to that third pair defenseman, to that even second pair defenseman whose biggest skill is not hockey IQ. And it's something that I remember I knew a guy who played college football here in Canada, and his OC, offensive coordinator, was a former great Canadian quarterback in CIS. It was a problem that he had with his young QB was coaching at some point. Like it was his first coaching job, and in the practice, he was mad at the QB not making the right read, and he was like, "The heck, you don't understand? It's easy." Yeah, to you, it's not complicated. You're an amazing. You're not an above average football mind. You're a high IQ football mind. It is possible to teach that, but you need to have the teaching tools.
Yeah.
Um, I was not the one who was the most critical of the hire of Saint Louis under the idea that, hey, you know what? It's a young team that is going to have to learn. Why not try and have a coach that also is trying to learn? After that, we can get into the fact that so many coaches are eating uh, cold chicken in the buses and do not have that opportunity. Yeah, I think it's another debate. But right now, I do question if he has the tools and if he is getting them. Because recently, Pierre Lebrun said that around the league in offices, it was one of the questions people have about the Habs is, do they actually have enough experience behind the bench? So that is my question that I'm asking right now. I am not to the point like some people of putting his job in jeopardy, questioning if he's still the man who can be there at least for this year, maybe next year. But I am questioning, is he improving as a coach? Because it is one thing that I've been wanting to see. And
That
it's much tougher to see if he actually is. I'm not there in the locker rooms and listening to the video session and all that.
yeah, it's so tough because we're not, right? And media will never get access to that. We will never get to see the actual day-to-day grind and what is being communicated effectively, right? And it's a great question. I saw somebody, I think it was on Blue Sky tonight, which, by the way, for those wondering, I'm kind of transitioning away from Twitter. Like Max said, I'll post stuff there content wise, but in terms of like my main stop for sharing my
Yeah.
thoughts, I'm switching over to Blue Sky. I think it's just not a good space anymore. And frankly, the reach is not there anymore either. I'm getting like a third of what I used to get for reach. So screw Elon and Twitter. So check out Blue Sky and follow there. But they were saying, is Marty more of a Rod Brindamore or a Wayne Gretzky? Right? We're like Wayne Gretzky, all the
Yeah.
talent in the world, but can somebody who has all that natural
Yeah.
ability and hockey sense teach when to them they just get it?
Yeah.
It's
But
a
that's
good
interesting.
question.
That's very interesting because when he first came in, my prediction on that was he was not going to be Wayne Gretzky because Martin St. Louis, despite becoming a Hall of Famer, needed to grind. He
Yes.
needed to grind. He was undrafted. He was an AHLer. He was a fourth liner. He was a third liner. Here's the thing, though. He was never all of those things because of a lack of talent. He was all of those things because back in the early 2000s and the late 90s, they would just not give a chance to a guy this small. So he
Yes.
basically had to punch him in the face or whatever to get it. So my premise that he was at some point a grinder might have been wrong a bit. So maybe he's so far a bit of both, but he can improve and become Ron Brandamo. But then you get into the debate of, yeah, but Brandamo learned as an assistant coach for many years on the Hurricane bench before they said, "You're ready, buddy. Go in. You're the coach now."
Yeah. I mean, I
Which St. Louis
guess
didn't do.
it's a different situation because the Hurricanes were already kind of trying to be good, right?
Yeah.
When they had Bill Peters was there, the disgraced coach who's been caught hitting players and saying racist things. Yeah, but so I guess like for the rebuild, I'm kind of where you were when you mentioned earlier. I like the idea of the coach developing alongside the team, but that requires Marty also having mentors, right? And I just saw MFM in the chat says that we talked about it previously, but having an experienced assistant coach with Marty would make a difference. And I totally agree. I think it is a problem for the Canadians that their coaching staff in general lacks experience.
Yeah.
So I don't have a problem with Martin St. Louis as a head coach. And I'm with you. I'm also not even close to putting him on the hot seat. I think he has a very long leash, a lot of
Well, he's
leeway
signing a
with this
contract this
organization.
summer, so
Exactly. And I don't think the Canadians are a panicking team. Ken Hughes just doesn't seem like the type to panic. And I think Jeff
doesn't.
Gorton has been around this league long enough in this kind of role that he's also not going to panic. But Martin St. Louis does have to show some improvement somewhere. I think the defensive system has to change dramatically. There's got to be an end point for this experiment because you're going to kill Sam Montembeault for starters. And the defensemen, too, the young defense needs to be insulated a little bit. And the veterans that they have can't do it. I like David Savard. I like Mike Matheson, but they're not capable of playing the roles that they're being asked to play. And
yeah,
there's just too
that's
many things going wrong. But I do
yeah.
think with St. Louis in terms of teaching, what gives me hope is a lot of the things that I've learned about education and like working with, for lack of a better term, kids, like just becoming a parent and being invested in trying to be a good parent. You learn about psychology of teaching and like how to work with different people, right? And also working with a coach on like my personal training, realizing that you mentioned, this is jumping all around, but it's kind of all related. The Brad Marchand thing a couple weeks ago. Right, you mentioned on hyperdrive hockey, and like there's no
Yeah,
accountability now, and some people need to get yelled at.
yeah,
Some people do, right? But
exactly.
not everybody is the same. Some people, if you get in their face and tell them like they're playing
They fade
terrible or
away,
whatever, they will melt and they'll fall
and
apart.
some
And that's
other will
not what they
feed off of
need.
it.
Yes. Brad Marchand, he's what, 36 now or 35? He's stable as a player. He's going to be likely a Hockey Hall of Famer. You can yell at Brad Marchand all day. He's not going to fall apart. With young kids, you have to maybe treat it a little bit differently. Some still need that, right? Some athletes need to be pushed in that way to get to the next level. But I do think that Martin St. Louis is pretty good at finding out what kind of situation a player needs to get there. And I do love that chip on his shoulder. And you mentioned the small thing. Like, let's be real, being small and Quebecois in the 90s, like he was dealt a terrible hand to try to make the league, and he ended up a Hall of Famer. Like, there's bias. We all know it.
Uh,
Like, we can see it.
I'm sorry, but I gotta come back on this. Is
Mm.
Brad Marchand a Hall of Famer?
I
Is
think
it the
he
Hall
will
of
be.
Fame or is it the Hall of Fame or the Hall of Very Good?
I think he will be. Part of it's because he's hitched his career to Bergeron, right? But
No, it has become the Hall of Very Good though. Hot
it's
take
true.
here.
The Game Over Network broadcasts live after every single Montreal Canadiens game. Find us at thegameovernetwork.com.